If Stimulus Check 2025 is spiking in your feed, you're seeing a classic macro moment. High expectations colliding with hard constraints. The debate isn't just political, it's theoretical, whether new checks make sense and what they would do to growth, inflation, rates, the dollar, and precious metals depends on which lens you use. Keynesian demand management, Friedman's permanent income hypothesis, Ricardian equivalence, modern monetary theory, or a new Keynesian sticky price model with policy lags. Let's translate the theory into plain English and run the math you can actually use. Hype versus reality. What a check really buys, the headline claim, is simple. Put cash in households, hands, and demand pops. That's textbook, Keynesian, fiscal stimulus, especially effective when unemployment is elevated or the output gap is negative. But two frictions matter. First, permanent income logic says people smooth consumption. A one-off payment isn't income in a lasting sense, so they may save a chunk. Second, Ricardian equivalence argues that forward-looking households know today's transfers become tomorrow's taxes. Some will save the check to pay that future bill. In the real world, neither extreme wins outright because liquidity constraints exist. Lower income, credit-constrained households show a high marginal propensity to consume MPC. Affluent households show low MPC. Translation: checks work best when targeted toward people who must spend them. The multiplier, math, start with a hypothetical. A $600 check to 220 million adults implies $132 billion in transfers if the blended MPC across recipients is approximately 0.50 higher for constrained households, lower for others. The first round demand impulse is $66B. The fiscal multiplier depends on slack and monetary stance. In a slack economy with accommodative policy, you might see 1.02, 1.5. In a tight, near full employment setting with supply frictions, more like 0.4 to 0.8. That puts the total GDP effect somewhere in a broad $50. 200B band, spread over a few quarters. That's not free money, it's demand advanced into the present, with effects that fade unless reinforced by income growth. Will it be inflationary? The answer lives in new Keynesian mechanics. If slack is small and expectations are anchored, a transfer tilted toward high MPC recipients can push prices up faster than output. Think Phillips curve plus supply constraints. If real rates are falling and the output gap is positive, the inflation risk rises. If real rates are positive and supply is loosening, the impulse is tamer. Also remember, policy lags, recognition, decision, implementation, and impact. All take time. Checks arriving after the economy has already reaccelerated hit differently than checks landing into a downturn. The same $132 billion can be stabilizing or destabilizing depending on timing. Debt, rates, and fiscal space. Debt sustainability isn't a slogan, it's a math identity. The key is RG, the interest rate on debt minus the nominal growth rate. If R less than G, debt ratios can stabilize even with modest primary deficits. If R greater than G, debt dynamics worsen. Unless the primary balance improves, stimulus funded by bills or bonds also interacts with the term premium and central bank balance sheet policy. When investors price higher future deficits, long yields can rise, crowding out channel, softening the multiplier. When confidence is strong and savings are abundant, the market can absorb extra issuance with smaller moves in yields. MMT versus monetarists. Why you hear opposite claims? Modern monetary theory emphasizes that a currency issuing sovereign isn't financially constrained like a household. The real constraint is inflation. MMT would greenlight transfers when idle capacity exists and call for taxes or spending cuts only if inflation overheats. Monetarists counter that broad money, growth, and expectations are the real drivers. If money and velocity pop while supply is tight, prices follow. Both views agree, in their own language, that capacity and credibility decide the outcome. Design is destiny. Timely, targeted, temporary. 3 choices dictate effectiveness. Targeting. Universal versus means. Higher MPC comes from lower income and credit-constrained households. That raises bang for buck, but increases administrative complexity and phase-out cliffs. Format. Direct payment versus advanceable. Tax credit versus automatic stabilizer. Direct payments are fast. Tax credits reduce friction at filing. Automatic stabilizers, for example, income-linked benefits that scale automatically. Solve timing risk. Delivery rails. Direct deposit, debit cards, or digital wallets. Shape speed, fraud, exposure, and inclusion. Good design maximizes MPC, minimizes leakage, and avoids perverse cliffs that penalize work. Will there be a check in 2025? Read the early signs. Markets handicap probabilities using a trio of signals. Labor rising, unemployment trend, persistent increases in jobless claims, falling hours. Credit stress, wider high yield spreads more distressed debt, and leading demand. New orders below inventories, weaker real retail sales freight slowing. 2 of 3 flashing is when discretionary fiscal talk gets serious. 3 of 3 is when bills get names. Legislative math, not just macro, decides final outcomes. But these indicators tell you when the drumbeat turns into drafting, precious metals, and the dollar. What usually happens for a bullion-oriented audience? The chain goes like this. A credible prospect of transfers can lift growth expectations and, if paired with easy money, pressure real yields. Lower real yields tend to support gold and silver as non-yielding stores of value. If markets instead fear larger deficits without central bank accommodation, long yields can rise, the dollar strengthens, and gold, silver can chop or reach. Silver sits at the intersection of monetary hedge and industrial metal. If stimulus boosts cyclical demand, electronics, solar, its beta can exceed gold S on the way up, but it also swings harder on the way down. Practical playbook, household, investor, operator. For households, treat any check as a buffer first. Emergency fund top-up, then high interest, debt reduction, then durable needs. If you're stable, consider split goals. A portion to savings or investments. A portion to essential upgrades that raise productivity, education, tools, home efficiency. For investors, align moves with the macro read. If real yields fall and growth steady, duration and quality can work alongside a strategic bullion sleeve. If real yields rise on deficit, worries stay barbelled. Defenses plus selective cyclicals. And don't chase heat. Operators should extend runway, secure credit lines before stress peaks, and keep experiments high learning low burn so you can pivot as policy evolves. Early warnings versus false alarms. Beware. 3 traps. First, event myopia. A headline about draft legislation isn't the same as out-the-door cash. Watch the committee calendar and the pay-for debates. Second, multiplier overreach. Model in a 1.5x effect in a tight labor market with sticky services inflation is wishful. Third, timing error. Checks that land after a bottom can. Stoke inflation more than growth. The best version of a 2025 check is one that is timely, arrives into weakness, targeted high MPC recipients, and temporary sunsets cleanly. Bottom line. A 2025 stimulus check isn't a magic wand. It's one tool with wildly different outcomes, depending on who gets it, when it arrives, and how the rest of policy is set. The theory says checks work when slack is real, targeting is tight, and monetary conditions don't instantly neutralize the impulse. They backfire when capacity is tight, design is sloppy, and expectations fray. Read The Economy with Discipline Labor Credit. Leads then. Judge the proposal you see, not the one you wish existed. In macro, as in markets. Context is half the result.